Let's compare Notion versus Confluence. If you and your team have been looking for a note-taking wiki style type of tool, then you probably have wondered what's the difference between Confluence or Notion? Which one should I go with? Which one's better for me and my team? So we're going to try to answer that in today's video. How does your team articulate their thoughts and ideas? Did you know that a picture is worth 1,000 words? Let me introduce you to our exclusive sponsor for our Confluence videos, Glyphy. With Glyphy for Confluence, you can effortlessly create stunning flowcharts, mind maps, wireframes, and so much more, all directly from within Confluence itself. No more jumping to a different application or dealing with clunky integrations. Check out the link in the description below and start a free trial of Glyphy today. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. Drop a like if you get value out of this video. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, let me know down in the comment section down below. Now, I will admit that this is the first time that I've used Notion, and so I'm kind of learning along with you, but it is a very intuitive tool, and I actually kind of really like it. Now, I don't know if it's the way I set it up, but when I first got this into Notion, it is set up really, really well for like personal note-taking, and I think this is just the way that I selected. So Notion really feels like a tool that I wish I would have had like in college or in high school, or just for all personal aspects of my life, because I think it's really cool with journaling, note-taking, tracking tasks, and things of that nature. It's a really, really awesome tool. Now, there is a really, really important work section, which is really why we're watching these videos, right? Most of the people watching my videos aren't really trying to find out how they're going to improve their college life, but rather how they're going to improve their team performance and collaboration. And so when we come down to the templates, there's like a whole bunch of templates that are work related. So we can talk about templates that are like for product specs, for campaign briefs, engineering tech specs, engineering wikis, postmortems, retrospectives. So there's a lot of what you typically see in Confluence. They're all here. Now the templates and the UI, as we're just going to start talking with the UI here, they look and feel very similar. I wouldn't give favor to one tool over to the other. I think the interface on both is very easy to like learn and pick up, very intuitive. It's very easy to find things, and it just feels a lot like the same thing. Now, I will give, if I have to give a point, I will give 1 point to Confluence, because when I am creating pages, when I am over here and like editing the very first page for the first time, or if I'm nesting pages underneath, I don't get the sense of the same. In Confluence, I understand that when I type in like this page, I can hit publish, and then I know that I saved, right? But here, I kind of feel like Pied Piper, where they had to explain that the files just magically just save, and like, I don't know, maybe it's just not intuitive for me, right? Like, but clicking outside will automatically save these pages, and I'm kind of just looking for that save button or that publish button. So that's like the only little point that I would give to Confluence, because they really, I think, do a better job there. Now, giving a point over to Notion, I thought this was really cool. So if I go and create a page, I can just start typing in like Confluence versus Notion, and then I can use AI and hit enter, and it will go and basically start helping me out. Now, this to me was really interesting because I don't see this inside of Confluence. Now, I do know that Confluence AI is coming, but that was also like 3 months ago. So Atlassian, you might want to hurry up and catch up, because this is really, really neat to have. And I think it's going to be game changing when it's over there. But because it's not there right now, we're going to give the point over to Notion. I think this is really cool. So if you're looking for a tool and you want your team to have a little bit more AI and some assistance there, Notion is going to be the tool that you're going to want to use. The only other gripe that I have here on Notion is when you're looking at the personal stuff, embedding and nesting these pages is not as intuitive. But now that I got into the campaign brief, this basically feels exactly like Confluence. So again, these are very, very close. Out of all the other tools that I've compared to, like OneNote and SharePoint and things of that nature, Notion is probably going to be the one that is the closest in like just user interface, functionality, and price. Now, speaking of which, let's move over to doing like a side-to-side comparison. Now, what I'm going to show you next is I'm going to show you Confluence's versioning of how they compare against Notion. And then I'm going to show you Notion's view of the world of how they compare against Confluence. So So let's start off with Atlassian's view of Confluence versus Notion. So this is an interesting comparison. So go beyond Notion's limits, okay? While Notion is the claims to be the all-in-one, it overpromises and underdelivers. Confluence gives teams any size the freedom to create workflows that are best for them with hundreds of integrations available. And I think this is the first jab that Confluence takes at Notion. From my research, from just like the few moments, hours that I spent learning this, one of the key indicators or differentiators, which we're going to talk about more when we talk about pricing next, is that of the retention of the information. Knowledge in Confluence is built to last. That means you're not going to get information lost. And from what I'm gathering from Notion is that information gets lost in Notion. And it's not so much that it gets cluttered like in the sea of nested pages and stuff. But, and as I'll explain when we get to the pricing page, Notion somehow, again, I haven't used it long enough to experience this, but apparently the information goes away. It only retains information depending on which payment plan you're on for an X number a day. So I thought that was interesting that, like, why would a company want their information to go away? And obviously there's an enterprise version that kind of solves this problem, but that's going to cost some money because any Confluence at any price is always going to retain your information. Your information doesn't magically disappear. So I thought that was interesting. And so they say that 96% of Notion users said Confluence helps them better capture team knowledge. All right, don't just plan, do. So there's obviously, this is probably the biggest selling point, the biggest differentiator, is if your team is in Jira, you're going to want to be in Confluence. Now, while you can use Notion, you can use many of the other tools, it just integrates so well. They're built by the same team and they're designed to really work together. So if you are a Jira user, using Confluence basically becomes a no-brainer. I don't see any other reason to use any other tool when your team is already in Jira. Now on the Notion side, on that flip side, Notion kind of tries to be a little bit of everything. My understanding is that Notion actually tries to like build a little bit of Jira in there because you can build boards and you can track tasks and things of that nature. But again, you get yourself into these situations where you have these tools that try to do a little bit of everything but end up doing nothing well. And Confluence is a dedicated tool suite for one specific purpose. Jira is a different tool suite for a different purpose. And you can claim that it's a selling point that, hey, well, if I only have to be in one team and one project and one tool, then the cohesiveness is much better. But you end up basically like with iTunes, right? Where it was this tool that could do it all, and then it just becomes slow and buggy and just like overwhelming and overburdening. And I am personally of the opinion, I used to hate this. I used to actually hate that Atlassian broke up their different like capabilities into different tools. But because they talk to each other so well, I kind of like it now. I used to use Team Foundation Server, which had everything in one tool. And again, it gets overwhelming. You kind of get lost in the UI. You get lost in where the heck everything's at. And I kind of like this whole breakup. So I don't know that having things dispersed is a bad thing. I think it's a feature. And then just to kind of finish things up, you get a lot of admin power. You get a lot of permissions, restrictions. Confluence is designed for teams. It's designed for collaboration. It's designed with a team in mind, capturing information, and obviously the sensitivities that go behind that from an enterprise perspective. And I feel like Notion, like the very first feeling I'm getting is like very personal, very much like OneNote, where it's like, let me jot down my thoughts and my ideas onto paper and let me share them with my team, versus Confluence like, hey, let's focus around this team thing and then figure out how to share information, because like it really works really well to make sure that as a company, there's scalability, there's security and things of that nature. So I definitely would give points to that. Are you struggling to get your points across in a meeting? Have you tried showing your team a diagram instead? Glyphy makes intuitive drag and drop diagramming software that helps teams of all types collaborate more effectively. Glyphy's deep integrations with Confluence and Jira make it the leading Atlassian diagramming tool, allowing users to create everything from technical diagrams describing software architecture to basic mind maps to capture ideas. Give our friends over at Glyphy some love and start a free trial using the link in the description down below. Now coming down the end here, they do have a couple of like, I love these feature comparisons, right? So I think biggest selling points for me are robust Jira integration, thousands of apps, right? Atlassian and their marketplace is just phenomenal, top grade. And then obviously all the admin things. Now for everything else I didn't really care too much about. Other than the fact that these, again, there's no expiration on the information. I thought that was like mind blowing, but that is what Confluence is looking at. Now, when we go and look at Notion, they have a had it with Confluence, move to Notion in minutes. So they do make it apparently easy. I haven't tested this, but apparently they make it super easy. There's a mobile version of all this. You're able to have a Wikipedia, some project management. Again, they try to do like a lot of the Jira stuff inside of here. You have shared documents and customized workflows. So this is really cool. This is really interesting. I think it's great that you can do a whole lot in it, but like I said, as I just explained, right? I kind of feel like trying to do a whole lot of everything sometimes means that you don't master certain things. So the project management aspect, obviously Jira is tried and true. That's the one you want to use. So I don't see being able to do project management as a selling point from within Notion. Now, drag and drop editing, that's all interesting. Automatic page hierarchy. I think this is all just mumbo jumbo here because it feels the same. I see all these things in Confluence. I can do drag and drop. It's automatic page hierarchy. It's going to be basically the same stuff. I don't see any of these as selling points. Now, the one that is interesting is databases. Just know that Confluence, again, announced but haven't delivered. Confluence does and will have databases coming to a theater near you. And so that, just make sure that you keep that in mind, that while this is probably a very enticing thing from Notion, it is coming to Confluence as well. But other than that, I think it looks pretty much like, again, the features and functionalities are very, very similar. I would still favor Confluence, especially if you're coming in from a Jira team, especially if you are looking to expand the power of the tool with the thousands and thousands of different integrations that you can utilize through the part marketplace. Now let's take a look at pricing. I think the next logical thing here is to look at the pricing. So when we're looking at Notion, Notion's pricing starts at free. Obviously, most companies are not going to be in that boat, specifically because you can only do 10 guests, right? Confluence has the same 10 free version as well. But this page history is 7 days. I think this is interesting. So you can restore your page to a previous version. Okay, so it's not that information disappears. It's that information after time, as you're editing, will disappear. So this, I think, is different then, right? So earlier I interpreted this as like information disappears, but it doesn't look like the information on the page disappears, but rather the change history of all the changes you make, whether you add things or delete things from that page, that stuff is going away. So I think this is a little bit different than what I was interpreting it before. So I'm not as hurt or offended by it, but I do think that Confluence obviously will always, forever and ever and ever in perpetuity, hold that information for you. So if you're a company, that's really, really important. Unless you're like those type of companies that like does some shady stuff and you got to purge your stuff for legal reasons, right? Then you probably want to go with Notion in that case. You can have up to 250 guests. This is interesting too because you in Confluence can have an unlimited amount of guests. Relative to you. So in Confluence, you get 5 guests for every paid user. So if you have more than like 250 users, you're going to have way more guests. So it just depends on you and your company. Now, the pricing is a little bit steeper, I think. So when we compare and contrast this with Confluence pricing, Confluence is $575 and $11 for a premium. So $11 is going to get you all the bells and whistles versus it's going to cost you $15 over in Notion. Now it is $18. Notice that it is $18 if you don't sign up for the annual pricing. So we're comparing $11 versus $18. So that is a significantly different price. So that right there, though, is just from the pricing perspective. I still think that Confluence has the win here, right? Not only is it $7 cheaper per month, it's going to give you so much more. You're going to have the calendars. You're going to have automations. You're going to have analytics. You're going to have the version control forever and ever. You're going to have all the apps from the App Store. You're going to be able to do bulk archive. And there's just a lot of stuff that you're getting in these paid versions of Confluence that I just don't think that you're getting as big of a value when you're getting the paid version of Notion. And then finally, let's take a look at some of those integrations. So Notion does have a store. Notion does have a version that allows you to basically add to your environment. And so I'm just going to try to see if I can find where these integrations are at, see what we can add to it. All right, so here are the integrations. There's a lot here. As you can see, there's integrations with common things like Figma, Slack, GitHub, Dropbox. So a lot of what we're used to. There's even a Jira one here. Lucidchart. So these integrations are pretty much going to be the same, but these are all integrations that just talk to other tools. So Confluence has basically all of this as well. But the only major difference that when we look at the Confluence integrations is that not only do we have a lot of these like talking with other tools integrations, those are like given, but Confluence also like can expand the power for a fee. Now I do know that you can buy templates for Notion, but Confluence takes that a little bit farther, right? You're adding power to the tool and expanding the capabilities of the tool, as opposed to just either talking to another tool or being able to essentially, have templates. So I think from that perspective, I'm definitely going to give the point to Confluence, because again, the marketplace there is just designed so much better, in my opinion. Way more power, way more capabilities. So anyways, that brings us to the end of the video. So at this point, which one is better? Which tool should you go with? Well, I'm going to stick to what I've been saying through the video. If your company is in Jira already, Confluence is a no-brainer. These are just designed to talk together, work together, and be together. If you're a completely new company and you just need a tool that kind of gets your team jotting down notes and talking to each other, Notion is probably going to be a good option for you. It's going to be able to do a lot of different things, but I think you're going to hit limitations as you grow and scale. So if I was in your position, I would start off with Confluence, because even though it's going to be not as super easy to use as Notion, and you're going to have to use a couple of different tools to achieve what you want, I think in the long term, from a scalability perspective, you're not going to want to do project management in a tool that's not designed for like agile-based project management like Jira is. You're not going to want to do some of the things that are Jira specific inside of a different tool. You're not going to want to do things that are like Confluence specific inside of a different tool. So I think having that segregation and having that specialty in these tools from a scalability and long-term perspective, I think that's going to be a better play for you and your business. Is your team having a hard time collaborating? Then you need to try out Gliffy for Confluence. Collaboration has never been easier. Gliffy for Confluence allows your team to work together in real time, making edits, providing feedback, and driving productivity. Say goodbye to version control headaches and hello to seamless teamwork. Show our sponsor the power of the internet and start a free trial to Gliffy for Confluence using the link in the description down below. But that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed this comparison. If you did, make sure you leave a thumbs up. And if you made it this far and you haven't subscribed to the channel, this video is part of the Summer of Atlassian 2.0 series, and we are trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. So make sure you smash the subscribe button now and help us get there. We are so close yet so far, and we can only get there if you smash that subscribe button right now. Finally, make sure you take a look at the description of this video, as there's all the information for all the different ways that you can help support this channel. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.
Love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need